Welcome back to Catalyst University. My name is Kevin Tokoph, and in this video, we're going to be continuing our discussion of grip strengthening, and we're going to be looking at more advanced exercises in this video to really get those hands and forearms as strong as possible. Now, before we get into the exercises, let's do a brief review of the three big reasons why you would want to get your grip as strong as possible. The first comes out of several studies that demonstrate a pretty strong correlation between grip strength and overall health and longevity. So in other words, the stronger your grip, the more likely you are to be healthier overall, less comorbidities, etc., and to live longer. Now, does that mean you can get your grip strength up to 200 pounds of force and eat McDonald's every day? No. If you eat McDonald's every day, you're probably not going to make it to 100 years old. But again, this is a correlation. If you are somebody that really takes care of yourself, has really strong grip, you're more likely to live longer and do so with less health issues. Number two, any kind of sport that requires you to hold on to something. That could be powerlifting. That could be Olympic lifting, really any of the weightlifting sports. And any contact sport. So we could be talking about football. We could be talking about jiu-jitsu, judo, mixed martial arts, anything like that where you might have to hold on to something or someone. It's going to be important. And then number three, from a clinical standpoint, your physical therapist, anyone that does any kind of manual therapy. If your hands are weak, if your forearms are weak, it's going to limit what you're able to do for manual therapy. It's also going to limit how long you're able to do it. And again, if your hands start to deteriorate and your wrists and your elbows, that's not going to do good. It's going to shorten your career, or at least it's going to make the end of your career very limited in terms of what you're able to do. So we want to get your hands strong. We want to get your forearms strong because it's going to be protective all up the chain, even up to the shoulder, I would make an argument. Now, before we get to all these working exercises down here for grip, we want to make sure that all the muscles that we're going to be utilizing in those exercises are as warmed up as possible. And whether it's dead hangs, plate holds, an axe, or a sledgehammer, those exercises are going to heavily utilize the shoulder and shoulder girdle muscles. So we want to make sure those are warmed up first. And you might have some different ideas, but my three go-to exercises are standard rows, face pull rows, and X rows. Now, you can do these exercises with all sorts of equipment, but my personal favorite is to use monster bands. Let's take a look at these exercises right here. So first, we have standard rows with a monster band. Now, it doesn't matter if you're doing a bent over row or you're doing this with a cable machine or with a monster band. The biggest part, in my opinion here, is when you pull back to squeeze those shoulder blades together. Yes, the arms are moving, but I tell patients this, the most important part is squeezing those shoulder blades together, that scapular retraction. The other thing here is when you're using a monster band, as you pull the band toward your chest, pull your hands apart. Stretch the band between your hands. This is going to further engage the posterior shoulder musculature and really get those muscles going. And we'll talk more about this exercise when we cover rows in a specific video. The second exercise here is face pull rows. So very similar, we're going to row the band toward us, squeeze the shoulder blades together, but this time you're essentially bringing your fists up toward your temples on either side of your head. And once again, like with the standard rows, as you pull the band up towards your forehead or towards the top of your head, you are pulling your fists apart. You are stretching the band between your fists, and again, that is further engaging the posterior shoulder musculature. Now, X rows, you have to have two bands, and you're going to cross them, and you are going to pull the bands down toward your sides at an angle of approximately 30 degrees from vertical. And when you do this, again, you are squeezing the shoulder blades together, and this one is also really good at getting the lower traps activated, more so than the first two exercises. Now, if the goal of my workout is to specifically strengthen the shoulder girdle, those three exercises, I'm probably going to do a lot more than that, and I'm going to do more sets than I have indicated here. But if I'm just doing this as a simple warm-up for grip strengthening, I'm probably just going to run through one set of each and do approximately 20 repetitions and 2-second holds in that scapular retraction. So now, at this point, you've got your shoulder girdle muscles warmed up, and by virtue that you had to hold the band, your hand muscles and forearm muscles also to some degree are warmed up as well. It's time to get into the working exercises, and the first one we're going to look at is known as the dead hang. Now, the very first grip strengthening exercise we're going to be looking at is probably overall the best grip strengthening exercise on the planet, and that is the dead hang. Now, to perform a dead hang, you do need some equipment. You need a pull-up bar or something that you can hang from, a squat rack. This will do great. If you don't have any of these, you can certainly buy those things that hang in the doorway that you've seen on America's Funniest Videos, or you can just go to your local jungle gym and they usually have those bars that you can hang from. And so that's literally all you do here, is you just hold on to the bar, the squat rack, whatever it might be, and then we just hang. De-weight your feet if you're tall, and then you just hang. This exercise is amazing for getting your grip stronger. Usually what they say is you want to do 3 sets of this and hold for 30 seconds. Okay? Now at the end of the video, we'll talk about ways that you can progress this if you're able to get 3 sets of 30 seconds without fail. But as long as you are failing near the 30-second mark or getting really close to failing, you probably should stick with that level that you're at and only progress once you can fairly easily make it through 3 sets of 30 seconds here. Now with the dead hang exercise, I usually recommend people do about 3 sets of 30-second holds. If you cannot do 3 sets of 30-second holds at a given level, you're either at the appropriate level, you just need to work on getting to that 30 seconds, or if it's very difficult, you need to regress. We'll talk about that in just a minute. If you are able to do 3 sets of 30 seconds, you need to progress, make it more challenging. And I don't necessarily say increase the duration, although you could. I would actually say you need to progress the intensity, the level. And so that's what we're going to talk about right now. The simplest of the regressions, which we're going to look at right here, is just doing your full body weight with both arms, but using your foot or feet to assist the hold. So you can start with both feet on the ground to some extent, and then go to only 1 foot on the ground and gradually remove how much you are utilizing that foot. And the idea with using your foot or feet is to take away some of the requirements of your hands and forearms and to make it a little bit easier on those. If you have the appropriate setup like a squat rack and of course the monster bands, you can use the monster band to assist with the dead hang. Now obviously you can start with a very, very thick, strong monster band and then gradually progress to a very light monster band. And eventually that should take you to the point that you're able to do a full body weight 2-arm dead hang. Now, once you're at the point where you can do 3 sets of 30 seconds on a full dead hang with no assist, it's time to progress. And you could certainly progress the duration. You could do 45-second holds, 60-second holds, etc. But that would be more appropriate if you are working specifically on endurance. If you're trying to increase the absolute grip strength, you need to progress the resistance. And one way to do that is with a plate belt. You probably have seen people doing these with dips to add resistance or sometimes even pull-ups if you're really strong. And you just progressively add more and more weight on the plate belt. And you would still attempt for 3 sets of 30 seconds. Now, by far, the hardest progression is a full body weight dead hang, but with only 1 arm. Now, as you can see here, I'm not quite at the point where I am able to do this. I have to have a little foot assist. So given that I'm not able to do this completely, I'm probably better off personally sticking with a dead hang with a plate belt and just progressing the weight there. Now, what may not be apparent first looking at this is that the jump from a full body weight dead hang with 2 arms to only using 1 arm is a massive, massive jump. It's a massive jump for 2 reasons. One, let's say you weigh 200 pounds. If you're doing a 2-arm dead hang with no assist, that's 100 pounds per hand, essentially. If I go to 1 arm, you're essentially doubling the requirement of that entire hand/forearm to 200 pounds. It was 100, now it's 200. But the other thing we're neglecting is that When you only hold on with one arm, there is a rotational instability. When you're hanging up there, the shoulder is going to tend to rotate. And most people are not going to have the rotational control to be able to hold that statically. When you're holding with two arms, you essentially eliminate that rotational instability because it's canceled out by the fact that you're holding with the other arm. So a one-arm dead hang is extremely, extremely difficult. And so I would make the argument that for the vast majority of people, it's going to be sufficient for progressing once you can do the full body weight dead hang with two arms, is just to add the plate belt and just progressively add more and more weight. If you do that, your grip will get stronger. So that's the dead hang. Now we're going to move on to plate holds. Now the dead hang exercise that we just saw is amazing for strengthening those intrinsic hand muscles, the lumbricals, the interossei. And you need those intrinsic hand muscles to be strong when you're lifting heavy objects in the gym or out of the gym, or if you're doing manual therapy in the clinic. The problem with the dead hang is that while it strengthens the intrinsic hand muscles really well, it doesn't really get the thumb muscles that much. No matter what grip you're doing, you're not really using a huge amount of thumb in that grip. And certainly you can add a little bit of extra thumb to the grip, but it doesn't get it a whole lot. What it really gets are the muscles that control the flexion of the four digits 2 through 5. And those muscles are predominantly in the forearm. So you might be asking yourself, well, why do I do a dead hang if I'm interested in getting the thumb muscles stronger? Well, the reason for that is because the thumb muscles don't function in isolation. Even if you're using the thumb independent of these four fingers, you still need those intrinsic hand muscles and the forearm muscles to be strong. Again, very, very rarely do we ever use one joint or body part in isolation. We're going to be using muscles all up the chain. That includes muscles that control the elbow and the shoulder. And if you want more information on those, go watch those in other videos. So if we really want to get those muscles that control the thumb stronger, we should do plate carries or plate holds. What do I mean by that? Well, here is a plate right here, okay? The grip that I'm using with this is what we call a lumbrical grip. Some PT schools, at least the one I went to, called it a hamburger grip. If you were holding a hamburger, presumably with both hands, you hold it like this, where for the four digits 2 through 5, the PIP and DIP joints are neutral, and then you bend around the MCP joint right there, okay? And it's kind of like making a shadow puppet on the walls, right? And you just hold the plate like that. Now, you can hold it by your side statically here. You can walk around with it. You could potentially even do an exercise like a bent over row, get some dynamic movement in there, but the idea is you are just holding the plate like this. And certainly if you're just looking for straight strengthening of these muscles, it is more than sufficient just to hold it by your side like this. Now, in the time I've been speaking about this while I'm holding this, I haven't timed it exactly, but it's probably been around 30 seconds or possibly more. Now, a general rule of thumb, no pun intended, is that if you can hold the plate pretty easily for at least 30 seconds, it's probably not heavy enough to really get good gains in that grip strength, particularly in the muscles that control the thumb. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. So we're gonna get a heavier weight, okay? So I'm gonna pick this one up right here. This is 35 pounds, and I'm just gonna continue talking here. So again, the difference with the plate holds here between these and the dead hang is that we're getting a lot more use of those thumb muscles because we're having to hold the weight, and the weight is held between the muscles that flex the thumb and the muscles that flex the other four digits. So this is going to be much better for getting the thumb muscles stronger, and it's very easy to progress this. You can progress this either with time, but I would say once you get to the 30 seconds, you're better off progressing with resistance. And I think we've gotten to that point where I've hit 30 seconds on this plate. So I would say for the future, let's take the weight up on that. The last exercise here, the axe or the sledgehammer, this is old school, but it's something that everybody should try. And there's 3 big reasons for this. Number 1, it really works the hand intrinsics and the forearms to be able to control the axe down and up, especially that change in momentum or change in direction that occurs at the bottom and the top with each swing. In fact, this is actually the first exercise I ever did that actually gave me DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, in the hand intrinsics. It is a really good hand strengthener. The second reason is you're not doing this inside. Go outside, get some fresh air, get some vitamin D from the sun. Put your feet in the grass. It is good for you. It's good for your body. It's good for your mind. The third reason is that all the strength, all the size, all the mobility in the world isn't going to do you one bit of good if cardiovascular-wise, you're out of shape. If you are 280 pounds of muscle and you're out of breath going up the stairs, you're probably not doing everything that your body needs. So using the axe and the sledgehammer in the way that I'm about to show you really is just a high intensity interval training workout or a HIIT workout. It gets your heart going good. It is excellent for conditioning. Let's take a look at it right now. Now, originally, right before I recorded this clip, I was just going to put dead hangs and plate holds in this video, but I realized as I was chopping this tree, this is a really good hand strengthener. So then I decided to get out the camera and record this. And again, we had some yard work to do, tree falling in the yard. We're gonna cut it up and put it into some firewood for the winter. But chopping this tree right here in this manner, this is really, really good exercise, really good conditioning, really good cardio, and it is great for the hands. Now, if you don't have a tree or a log or something like that that needs to be split, or you're just generally concerned about safety with it being an axe, then you can just get a sledgehammer. You don't actually have to have a specific intention. Like you don't have to have a target that you're trying to bust up like a log. Just go outside with a sledgehammer and just hit the ground. Find a spot on the ground and just hit it. And the important thing when you're doing this for this purpose is you want to do it as forcefully as possible and as quickly as possible. Those two things are what are going to get your cardiovascular function up and going to get your hand and forearm strength up. And assuming you're doing that with some kind of HIIT programming, I would say do anywhere between 20 and 25 whacks of the axe or the sledgehammer and then take about a minute off. Get some water, get some Gatorade, some rest, whatever it might be, and do approximately 10 sets of that. And you will be amazed at how fast that 10 sets flies by and how sore your hands are going to be the next day. It really gets those hand intrinsics. So please make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification button for notifications for all videos in the future. Thank you so much.